Greetings, Commanders. This is Commander Meccan. Everybody's asking about what's the best build to go and rescue some of the pods that are now accessible on the Thargoid Titans, since the subsurface missiles that allow them to be rescued are being released. So, rather than answering individual questions, thought about making a simple video that explains what I personally think is the best build for the matter at hand, why it works, how to use it, and inspire you to adapt it or configure it in the way that makes the most sense for you. So, first, before we get into the specifics of this build, what are we trying to do? What we're trying to do is we're trying to build something that is going to stay very cold so that it doesn't get detected by heat from the Titan or its escorts, allowing you to sample undisturbed, or at least with the minimum disturbance possible. Has enough cargo for you to store all the pods that you'd recover. Ideally fits Class 7 Universal Olympic controller, as that allows you to host the maximum of 8 collector limpets at the same time, which speeds up the process of recovering those pods as quickly as possible. And then obviously you will also want one of these subsurface extraction missiles, because without one of those, you're not going to recover anything. So the ship that is best suited for this, I believe, is the Anaconda. The Anaconda doesn't normally run all that cool, but if you strip it of all weapons except for a single subsurface extraction missile, it is able to kit low emissions thermal spread power plant. Ideally, you'd have a grade 5. I didn't want to go all the way to Heratani, so I used Marco Quent, which allows you to build up the way to grade 4, which worked just fine in the end. This is the most heat-efficient power plant that you can have, and it allows you to run extremely cool when you're not doing things like boosting or firing weapons. And since you shouldn't be firing weapons, and for the most part you shouldn't be boosting, it works just well for what we're trying to do. The hard points, as I mentioned, is extremely straightforward. A single subsurface extraction missile is what you need. You can kit other weapons for utility, like beam lasers with thermal vent, in case you want to sort of like have an emergency ability to cool down. But these are generally not recommended, and certainly nothing that's actually meant to be used in combat is recommended, because any of these weapons takes additional power grid use. And power grid use translates into heat, and heat is your enemy for this particular build. Consequently, you want to make sure that you kit as few weapons as possible, or if you really, really want to put some multi-cannons here as like some kind of like safeguard, which you're not going to use, and it's not going to help you anyway, but if you still want to, you can put them in and make sure to turn them off while you undock, which will still reduce your power grid usage and will still make the build viable. When it comes to utility mounts, there's a couple which are a must. You absolutely need a pulse wave xenoscanner. If you don't have this, you cannot see the pods. If you cannot see the pods, you cannot rescue the pods, so you need this. The other thing you're going to need is the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer. If you don't kit this, you cannot get through the Thargoid Pulse, so you're not getting there, so you're not rescuing the pods. Caustic sink launchers are very, very useful, because getting to the Titan itself requires getting through the caustic field area. Anaconda is going to need 2 of these to get through the caustic area, because the con is very slow compared to some of the faster ships, and so you'll need 2 of these. While it's possible to do with 1, it's not recommended. Bring 2. It'll give you some additional buffer in case you start getting caustic missiles fired at you while at the Titan, which is very likely. Consequently, bring 2 of them. Then you have heat sinks. These are emergency sort of measures that you want to pop in the case that you absolutely need to boost away from the position that you're in. Other than that, they serve no particular purpose and are probably the least important modules that you use on this particular build. Finally, there's space, and you should mount 2 separate electronic countermeasure modules. These are exceptionally useful on the way to the Titans, in case you get hyperdicted by glaives or by scythes, or if you get interdicted once you drop into the target system on the way there by glaives or by scythes. Those 2 ships you cannot outrun. The Conda is not fast enough, and they will be firing containment missiles at you. Containment missiles reboot your frameshift drive, making you unable to wake out, and they are incredibly annoying. ECMs works very reliably to enable you to evade those missiles, as hitting your ECM and holding your ECM control while the missile is flying at you allows you to confuse its guidance system, making the missile miss. The One aspect of ECMs, however, is they have a very long cooldown time. So having a second one allows you to use ECM also on a second containment missile, but maybe fired by a second glaive that has interdicted you, allowing you to still get away. So since you have a utility slots, might as well bring two. There are situations where you're going to need two, are very rare, but in those situations where you actually do need both, you're going to be happy that you have them. In terms of core internals, military-grade composite for armor is the recommended. It's best balance of hull, and you don't need the additional speed that lightweight would give you anyway for this particular build, hence why mil-grade is what we recommend. We already talked about why having a low emissions power plant with thermal spread is so important and really key and core to this build. So this is something that you want. Get it as high as you can. 5 is ideal. 4 is still going to be something that you're going to get away with. 3 only puts you in dangerous territory and starts being not recommended. Dirty drives or drag drives for thrusters is pretty much the standard. In a very cold build, you could go with clean drives if you wanted and thermal spread, but that makes you a lot slower, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. Frame shift dry doesn't particularly matter. You generally want the best that you can. Increase FSD range with mass manager is usually what you go for, but whatever you have here will generally work. Live support is a standard live weight, but again, doesn't particularly matter in this build. Your power distributor should be charge enhanced with super conduits, but again, you're not going to be power or distributor constrained in this build, so what power distributor you use really doesn't matter. Feel free to use whatever you have lying around, and it's going to be all right. Sensors, you'll generally want long range to have a maximum visibility around the Titan. This is a good quality of life and convenient thing to have. Again, I wouldn't call it necessarily essential to the build, but it's a good thing to have. And the fuel tank, the default fuel tank is going to work. Now moving to internals. I mentioned earlier having a universal multi-limpet controller is desirable. Like this allows you to have 8 collector limpets running at any given point in time, which speeds up the collection of pods massively. As a result, I would say any ship that is dedicated to rescuing should have one of these on board. You want a shield generator as a buffer, and you will eventually attract retention, and you will want to have the ability to soak up at least some damage. And furthermore, having a shield generator of this kind allows you to tank the special attack that the Titan will unleash on you. The Titan will unleash the so-called Taurus, the big blue field, which you may have seen in images or videos or experienced yourself if you've been around the Titan for any period of time. And having a bi-weave generator allows you to tank that without sort of relying on repair limpets or other ways to soak up the damage. A 6C reinforced low draw is what I personally would recommend, although you could put in a standard shield if you want. If you have prismatics, you can put in prismatics. That's all good and fine. Just keep in mind that shields generate heat when they are recharging. And so having shields that are distro and power efficient is desirable so that it doesn't push you over the threshold of detection and consequently lets you stay undetected even when your shields are recharging. Then most of the cargo space on the Anaconda is really left for cargo space. Fortunately, these pods are not caustic, so regular cargo racks work just fine. As you can see here, I go with 2 class 6 and 2 class 5. This gives me 224 or thereabout total cargo, which is more than you will probably need. I tend to fill them up with about 100 limpets when I set off, and then if I get really lucky or I'm somehow on a good run and I'm able to gather a large number of pods, you can always dump the additional limpets that you don't need to make space for additional pods. The rest is hull reinforcement packages, module reinforcement packages, an auto field maintenance unit to repair your modules if you need to, and a couple of module reinforcement packages for that additional resistance. So that's a build fundamentally. You'll see it linked in the comments below in case you're interested in sort of adapting it and trying it for yourself. Next, we're going to talk about how you will actually use it in the field. All right, so you've probably fought off a few hyperdictions and interdictions on your way into the Maelstrom. But the fight itself really begins once you get here. If you used your electronic countermeasures, fortunately you should be able to have reached this Maelstrom without taking any real significant damage. Once we drop in, one of the first things I'll remember to do is I'll turn off my frame shift drive. I'm not going to need it here and out, and it's going to generate heat, as you can see. Turned off my AFMU, turned off my beam lasers, as I'm not going to need them here either. What I will keep on for the time being is the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer, because this I am going to need. So that stays on for the time being. You can boost away while you head to a center of a Maelstrom, because your heat in this particular phase does not matter. It will matter later on, but all the way, sort of like getting through the caustic cloud itself, you might as well sort of like get there as fast as possible. In this case, I have my two caustic sink launchers mapped to the same fire group. That's great for convenience. Like if you want to map them to a separate trigger, you can do that as well. But I personally find it convenient to have them on the same trigger and get rid of the two sinks when they both get full. I have my pulse neutralizer on my second trigger of this fire group. You can see the pulses coming in now. And as I go through it, I fire my pulse neutralizer. One of the good things about having a shield, which is not common for Delta flight Maelstrom, is that for whatever reason, shields prevent you from overheating as you go through the pulse itself. So you don't have to use that or waste a heatsink in going through the pulse to not take damage. When you see the asteroids, you're in the clear. Even if a second pulse fires, you will need to use your pulse neutralizer again, which is why I can turn it off, which is what I have just done. When you get to the asteroid field, that is once you get out of the caustic area and your caustic tanks start filling up, then that's where you want to sort of start slowing down, and you want to make sure that your heat goes down to somewhere below 20% is ideal. The actual range at which you are detected and at which all hell starts to break loose varies a bit, and it's very hard to determine in an exact way. I've personally found that value to be around 24%, but it's sufficient to be just a millisecond above 24% for all hell to break loose. So you want to be significantly under that, as you want some margin to be able to move around, or if your shields are charging, your heat goes further up. All those things will contribute to your heat, and consequently all those things will add up to your resting heat. Alright, so we've finally gotten to the asteroid field. We can see with Titan in the distance. We're going to pop these two heat sinks so that our caustic sink launchers are empty and ready to accept any additional caustic that may be fired at us from caustic missiles or the like. And now is the time where we start slowing down. At this time, I still have 4 pips in engine, since I'm still moving and I'm trying to get there relatively quickly. Once I get close enough, I will switch to 4 pips in system, which gives me additional shield resistance, which will give me additional buffer. In the distance, I'm keeping an eye out to see if there's any patrols. I am lucky enough in that there are no direct patrols on my way to the Titan, so I can accelerate somewhat and sort of like let my heat drop. Now it's 20%, which is fine for where I want it to be right now. I confirm that everything that I wanted to turn off has been turned off. The answer is yes, so we're good to go, on my heat, as you can see, is dropping even lower at 18%. Once you get to stop and end at the rest right above the Titan itself, your heat is going to go even lower. Now is the time to open your cargo hatch and start popping out those collector limpets. The multi-limpet controller that we've equipped allows us to have up to 8 collector input actives at any point in time, and that is the number we should have. So here they are. All the 8 inputs are now out and ready to collect. I will now engage my pulse wave xeno scanner to enable us to see the actual sites of the collection itself. I was too far, so I haven't highlighted them, so I'll try again when I get closer. And here they are. Note I am approaching this upside down. That's because my limpets are going to come and approach my bottom. And that's why this makes it a little faster. So the actual collection of the pods themselves requires you to target one of these surface chamber, not the other one that's like I was targeting earlier, don't get them confused. And then you press and hold the distraction missile so that it hits the drill, and then you release it when it crosses the blue zone, and that's going to eject the pods, and your limpets are going to go and grab them. Don't forget to open your cargo scoop, otherwise they are not going to be able to get back in. And you can fire as many pods as you want at any given point in time, so long as you can grab them quickly. Those are, there's no limit. May be a limit, but it's like a very big number, so consequently you should feel pretty comfortable firing up as many of those as you want. Like, you're gonna get attention at some point from the escorts. And by the way, if you're at this kind of a distance, it's also relatively easy exit, so if you want to move around, would get you a better shot. I personally place the extraction missile in the center line huge slot of Anaconda, since that sort of this close feeling. Let's see. There we go. If you miss the blue zone, the process fails, and presumably you kill everybody there, so no sweat about missing it. And this is really a process. Like, fortunately, there's no escorts right now, and I'm 16%. I'm so cold that nobody's really kind of getting close to me or paying attention to what I'm doing. There are a lot of annoyances, however, around here, in that glaives in particular and scythes will get close to you and will start paying attention to you, but if you stay close to this Titan, will not necessarily aggro you. Glaives, scythes, however, will compete with your own collector limpets when it comes to gathering the pods themselves. So having a scythe around you is annoying. You may want to relocate to a different area on the Titan to get rid of that scythes competing with your limpets themselves. Even then, scythes, collector limpets, the sort of Thargoid version of collector limpets, will sometimes chase your own limpets. And when they do, they typically end up crashing into your ship and consequently get destroyed, which allows sort of that competition to sort of reduce. With that, since we've collected 25, let's say that we're happy with 25. Obviously, you could collect way more, but we want to keep this video at a reasonable length, so we're going to make sure that it doesn't take too long. So we're going to start kind of moving out of the way. There's a few more limpets coming in. Let's make sure that we can get a chance to get them. Here they are. And then comes the next phase, which is if you haven't attracted aggro, relatively straightforward. If you have attracted aggro, not straightforward at all, which is to get out of here. Let's get the final few pods in. There we go. Let's close our cargo scoop. And again, I am not boosting away. I am effectively slow boating away, as you can tell, because boosting would get my heat up, or I could pop a heatsink and boost, which is what I did right now to show you. Like, if you want to boost, remember, pop a heatsink first so that your heat stays low. If you're boosting without a heatsink covered on, you will get quite hot and things will start aggroing you, and your overarching life in this Maelstrom is going to become very difficult. With that being said, since I have 2% armor I lost, I'm not sure how I even lost it. Probably bumped into something. I will pop a repair limpet, which I can't because all my limpets are out. So forget about my repair limpet. But I'm far away at this point, so I'm relatively safe. And I got plenty of speed as well, not. And I am getting the hell out of here. Throughout this whole process, I should have shifted to 4 and sys in case I had aggro and taking additional damage from hostiles in the area. I completely forgot. So do as I say, not as I do. Put 4 pips in sys and only switch to engine when you need to get out. Once we are again back into the caustic zone, we'll switch back to our caustic sink launchers and we will ride the wave out. In this case, there's no need to use the pulse neutralizer. In fact, riding the wave out ejects you at almost 2,000 meters per second, which propels you straight through the caustic area at a much faster speed, and consequently that's generally preferable. You'll take some damage, but if you're fully shielded and have enough hull to tank it, it certainly makes your life easier. While the Thargoid Pulse charges and while I'm about to get yeeted and surf away out, I'm gonna plot the course to the nearest megaship. Why megaship? Because as our friends from Canon figured, turning in pods only makes progress for the war if they're turned in at rescue megaships. You can turn them in anywhere at any search and rescue contact, but if you turn them in at a search and rescue contact that is not on a megaship, they will not contribute to the war progress. And since we fight for humanity and we want to make sure humanity comes out of this war triumphant, we will make sure that we do everything we can to contribute to the war effort, and we will turn these in at a rescue megaship. So here we are. Let's see if the pulse is charging. In the meanwhile, we continue to use our caustic sink launchers. And as soon as we are mass locked, we'll be able to hop out and jump to the megaship and turn our pods into the search and rescue contact. That's it. I've made it look simple. I do have some practice. I think the first time you try something like this, you may find that you aggro a lot of hostiles, and that makes your life hard, so don't sort of be dissuaded. Remember, the most important thing is to remain calm. And now we're flying the pulse rate, and as you can see, we're flying away at 1200 meters per second, while our costing 6 is disabled. Now firing them. Now we should be in the clear. We're moving still at 900 meters per second. Our mass lock should go off any second now. We plugged in our course. We're just 3 jumps away. We don't have that many, 32. We could have grabbed a lot more if we decided to stick around longer, but it's still 32 souls that we feel we've contributed to the saving all. That's it. Obviously, since we've turned it off, you'll want to turn your frameshift drive on, and any other things you may want to turn on, sort of like while you're no longer in this need to be super cold. And as soon as your frameshift drive turns on, you can hit that frameshift drive, or in this case super cruise, because my jump target is obscured by the planet. But here we go. We're now going to hop into super cruise, and as soon as we're clear, we're going to jump into which means keep in mind that now that you're carrying cargo, you will get interdicted also by human NPCs. So it's just something to be ready for. You can fight off human NPC interdictions. You're going to be, again, interdicted by scythes if you are in humans, even if you're in human-controlled space within the range of Maelstroms. That's what you have your ECM for. Make sure to use your ECM on your way to a megaship, because nothing sort of like is more depressing than spending all this time to collect these pods to have them stolen by a scythe on your way to your destination. That's it. With that, I hope you find this video and this helpful. I hope you'll find the build information useful. Feel free to adapt it. Feel free to let us know how your experience saving pods from the Titans goes. And glory to Mike.